What's happening around us in our culture at the moment? In order to help us understand, we're going to turn to a German theologian at the beginning of the 20th century who lived in a very dark time in the days of the Third Reich. His name was Dietrich Bonhoeffer.
And just 2 days after Hitler's election as Chancellor in January 1933, while Germany was still celebrating its new leader, Bonhoeffer spoke on radio to a national audience, criticising the new charismatic Chancellor and warning of the Nazi agenda that was sweeping Germany. Before he finished his talk, his broadcast was cut off, abruptly ended by government censure. Due to Hitler's direct influence, the leaders of the state church elected a new and fully Nazi-aligned leadership. Then a national church synod passed a resolution in September 1933 to remove all pastors and church officials of Jewish descent. In November, a rally of 20,000 Christians was organised demanding that the Old Testament be removed from the Bible because it was Jewish. Bonhoeffer opposed this move and was the first voice within the church to call for Christian resistance to Hitler's persecution of the Jews. Bonhoeffer opposed the persecution of the Jews and actively sought to protect them. This put him at odds with the unification of all Protestant churches into one single pro-Nazi Protestant Reich Church. Famous theologians like Karl Barth, Martin Niemöller, and the young Bonhoeffer and others publicly announced their resistance to the Nazis in the Barmen Declaration.
What about the amazing times, Karl Barth and Dietrich Bonhoeffer, Martin Niemöller, others, and the Barmen Declaration standing against the tide of the day in which they lived. It's one for us to think about. We're all concerned to be on the right side of history. Often to be on the right side of history is not to get swept up in the tide at the time. So sadly, during that time, many liberal German Protestant theologians who had signed the aggressive Kaiser Wilhelm's war manifesto, which led to the First or the Great War, also became card-carrying Nazis because they felt that that was what it was to be on the right side of history. Today we look back with horror and with shame to imagine that anybody could have ever done that. But Dietrich Bonhoeffer, in his incredible work called Ethics, described something else which happened, which he observed in Germany in the 1930s. And this is what helps us with where we are today. What he noticed was that before the rise of the Third Reich in Germany, people who wanted justice, freedom, compassion, human flourishing, all of those virtues tended to use those as battering rams against the Christian church. So they argued that the Christian church was against human flourishing and against those different virtues. But what Bonhoeffer observed was that as the Third Reich rose to power and society became more and more darkened and twisted in evil, those that wanted freedom, justice, compassion, dignity, human flourishing began to reassess things and to look at it all very differently. Bonhoeffer put it beautifully. He said it this way, that it was as if the children and the mother had become estranged from one another, and then in the moment of darkness, the children recognized their mother and that they came home. They recognized that the only true place of safety for all of these human virtues was the church, the Christian church, and that the source itself of all of these virtues which they longed for and had cherished was actually Jesus Christ himself. Now, we're not quite in the Third Reich in Britain at the moment, but there is an incredible collapse, a profound upheaval, and a darkening as the modern era comes towards an end. What we're already seeing is that on the outside, people that want freedom, justice, compassion are again starting to realize that those are not freestanding virtues. They are not virtues that are protected by other belief systems, that the only safe place of life, of real life, is in the Christian church and with Jesus Christ. That's why many, many people are coming to church, getting on board, trusting Jesus, turning back to him, turning away from their sins, from all that they've done wrong, and turning back to him. And they're finding a place of life, of love, acceptance, welcome, where they can be who they're made to be and are transformed to become more and more like Jesus himself. If you're one of those people, if you're worried, you can't understand what's going on in the world at the moment, if you think the world has gone mad, if you're afraid for the future, you don't know where to turn, come to Jesus Christ. Come into the doors of church and come to know him, and you'll find this one safe place of life that Dietrich Bonhoeffer found so long ago, that many, many people are finding around us today. And as more and more of us come back to Jesus, come and join his church again, we're going to find that his light will shine more and more, the darkness will be turned back, and that with Jesus, the best is still to come.